What if the war in Ukraine ended in a way that few people in the West believe is possible? What if Russia actually won, not just by retaining some territories, but by imposing its strategic objectives and altering the balance of power in Europe? This scenario would raise a number of unsettling questions. What would happen to Ukraine? How would NATO react? And most importantly, what kind of world would emerge after this victory? Today we will explore a hypothetical scenario that could redefine the future of global security. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in 2022, the objective seemed clear. Moscow believed it could quickly overthrow the Kiev government and replace its leadership with an administration aligned with the Kremlin. But the war turned into something very different. The conflict dragged on, the front lines stabilized, and the world entered a new era of geopolitical rivalry. But even years later, the question remains open. What would a Russian victory mean? A Russian victory does not necessarily have to mean the complete conquest of Ukraine. In reality, there are several possible scenarios. For example, Russia could consolidate control over strategic territories in the east and south. These regions are important for different reasons. Some have great industrial value. Others offer strategic access to the Black Sea. Controlling these areas could allow Moscow to exert permanent pressure on the rest of Ukraine. Another possibility would be to force Kiev to accept a political agreement that limits its military capacity or its rapprochement with Western alliances. In that case, Russia could achieve its objectives without occupying the entire country. For Ukraine, such an outcome would have profound consequences. First, there would be the territorial question. Losing important regions would mean not only changes to the map, but also enormous economic and social challenges. Second, the country would need to deal with millions of people displaced by the war. Destroyed cities, damaged infrastructure, and a long reconstruction process. But perhaps the most important consequence would be psychological and political. The war profoundly shaped Ukrainian national identity. Regardless of the military outcome, the relationship between Russia and Ukraine would hardly ever be the same. Now imagine the impact of this victory on the rest of Europe. NATO was profoundly influenced by this war. Many countries drastically increased their military spending. New members joined the alliance, and European security returned to the center of strategic concerns. If Russia were to achieve a significant victory, it could provoke two different reactions. Some countries might advocate an even firmer stance against Moscow. Others might argue that it is better to avoid direct confrontations. This division could create new tensions within the alliance itself. A Russian victory would also have global implications. Other powers would be watching closely. Regional conflicts in different parts of the world could be influenced by this outcome. The balance of power between the great powers could shift. Countries that currently rely on the protection of military alliances may begin to reassess their strategies, and this could initiate a new phase of competition between geopolitical blocs. Regardless of who wins, the war has already transformed how conflicts are fought. Economical drones played a central role. Real-time technology and intelligence became crucial. Small, highly mobile units are replacing traditional formations in many scenarios. Armies around the world are carefully studying every lesson from this conflict. The war in Ukraine is not yet over, and its final outcome remains uncertain. But considering different scenarios helps to better understand the risks and challenges of the current world. If Russia wins, the impact will extend far beyond Ukraine's borders. It could redefine alliances, military strategies, and the very balance of global power. One thing, however, is already clear. This conflict has gone down in history as one of the most important geopolitical events of the 21st century.